به شيء مهما تصورت ببالك فالله لا يشبه ذلك. ومن وصف الله بمعنى من معاني البشر فقد كفر. وأشهد أن سيدنا وعظيمنا وقائدنا وقرة أعيننا محمدا عبد الله ورسوله ونبيه وصفيه وحبيبه وخليله، أرسله الله هدى ورحمة للعالمين، هاديا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه سراجا وهاجا وقمرا منيرا. اللهم صل وسلم وأعظم وأنعم وأكرم على هذا النبي الكريم سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين، كلما ذكره الذاكرون وغفل عن ذكره الغافلون. الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا رسول الله، الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا حبيب الله، الصلاة والسلام عليك يا سيدي يا عظيم الجاه. أما بعد عباد الله، فنذكر أنفسنا بإخلاص النية لله تعالى في حضور هذا المجلس، مجلس علم الدين. I praise Allah, I glorify Him, and I thank Him for all the blessings that He gives without Him being obligated. And I ask Allah to raise the rank of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and to protect his nation, his Muslim nation. I testify that no one deserves to be worshipped except Allah, the one without a partner, the one without an equal, the one without a similar, the one who is unlike anything in the universe and nothing in the universe is like Him. He has no father, no mother, no sister, no brother, no son, and no daughter. He exists without time and place because He is the creator of time and place. He does not reside above the throne, and He is not attributed with fatigue, like the Jews say. Our Lord is glorified beyond any imperfection that the non-Muslims attribute to Him. Whatever you imagine in your mind, Allah Ta'ala does not resemble that. And whoever attributes an attribute of the creations to Allah is outside of Al-Islam. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the son of Abdullah, the son of Abdul Muttalib, the son of Hashim, the son of Abdul Manaf, from the tribe of Quraysh, is the best creation of Allah and His final prophet and messenger sent to all humans and jinn, and He is truthful about everything that He conveyed of the revelation. Thereafter, we remind ourselves to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah in attending this session of Islamic knowledge, because having the sincere intention is a requirement to get the reward. So the Muslim, whenever he does a good deed, he has to have the sincere intention for the sake of Allah to get reward for that good deed. The reward is defined as the compensation that the Muslim receives in the hereafter for the good deeds that he did in this life among what makes him happy. An example of the reward that is guaranteed to the righteous Muslim in the grave is that his grave is expanded approximately 105 feet by 105 feet, and his grave is illuminated with a light similar to the light of the full moon, and the fragrance of paradise would be present in the grave. The sincere intention means for the Muslim to do the good deed, seeking the acceptance of Allah only, and not the praise of the people. So alhamdulillah, we are grateful to Allah that we have been guided to Al-Islam, because Islam is the greatest endowment. And it is what enables the individual in the hereafter to go to paradise forever. And that's the only way that the accountable person will have mercy, will have peace, will have hope, is if they die as a Muslim. And we are grateful to Allah Ta'ala that we have been guided to have the authentic teachings of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah from or with the connected chain leading back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that is the only way for us to be sure that we are following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. because without the connected chains and without having that connection to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we cannot be sure that we are following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this is the way for us to be sure that we are following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is through this knowledge that is connected with the authentic chains of narration. So what does that mean? It means that this information is passed down from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the next generation, yani to the companions, and then from the companions to the followers of the companions, and then from the followers of the companions to the followers of the followers of the companions, and then from the followers of the followers of the companions to those that came after them, century after century, until reaching today's times. So even though we are far away from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in time, the time that he existed and the time that he was on the earth, it was a long time ago. And the time that the companions lived and the time that the best of the Muslims and the best generations of Muslims lived was a long time ago. But the knowledge that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam conveyed to the people, it still remains with us. And so this is how we can be sure that we are following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So may Allah Ta'ala reward the teachers of Ahlus Sunnati wal Jama'ah who preserved that knowledge and information and passed it down generation after generation. They put the effort, they sacrificed, they faced hardship, they dealt with many obstacles, many difficulties to get this knowledge and pass it on. So we are going to continue with the tafsir and the recitation of Juz'u Am, which is the last section of the Quran. And the Quran is divided into 30 juz'. And so the last one is called Juz'u Am, which is the final juz'. And so we got to verse 21. Or we got to, let's start from the story of Pharaoh. So, up till here, the first verses are swearing by Allah Ta'ala, Allah Ta'ala swearing by the angels. So, starting with An-Naazi'at, وَالنَّازِعَاتِ غَرْقًا. So, Allah Ta'ala swore by the angels who rip out the souls from the non-Muslims. وَالنَّاشِطَاتِ نَشْطًا. Allah Ta'ala swore by the angels who take the souls out gently from the Muslims. وَالسَّابِحَاتِ سَبْحًا. Allah Ta'ala swore by the angels that they fly back and forth, running the errands that they are ordered to do by Allah. فَالْمُدَبِّرَاتِ أَمْرًا فَالسَّابِقَاتِ سَبْقًا. Allah Ta'ala swearing by the angels who race the souls of the believers forward to paradise. فَالْمُدَبِّرَاتِ أَمْرًا. Allah Ta'ala swearing by the angels who manage the rain, clouds, and plants as their Lord commanded them. And then, remember, we said the idol worshippers, some of them believed that there was no judgment day, that there's no hereafter, that there's no afterlife, that you just die and you turn to dust and that's it. And that some of the idol worshippers, they were not sure. Is there afterlife? Is there no afterlife? Is this going to happen? Is that going to happen? So that's what, and we talked about Surah An-Naba that they were inquiring about, that they were asking about. And then here again, it's emphasized that there is an afterlife. So these verses swearing, the swearing that is happening is to emphasize the fact that there is an afterlife. So verse 6, يَوْمَ تَرْجُفُ الرَّاجِفَةِ is referring to when the first blow of the horn occurs, which is how everything dies except Allah. This is to end everything on earth. This is the end of the world. تَتْبَعُهَا الرَّادِفَةِ. Verse 7 is referring to the second blow of the horn, which resurrects everything. قُلُوبٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ وَاجِفَةٌ is referring to the hearts on that day will be pounding. The non-Muslims, while they were in this life, they made fun of the Muslims because we believe that there's a hereafter. Because we believe that after death, we're going to be resurrected. That after our bodies decay and become dust, on Judgment Day, they're going to be recreated and they're going to be judged. And so the Muslims, the ones who prepared for that day, they're not going to be surprised or caught off guard or scared because they prepared, they got ready. They are ready for that day. But the non-Muslims who they said, this will never happen, it's far-fetched, it's a reach, they think that it's crazy that someone would say that there's an afterlife, that you'll be resurrected. Well, their hearts are going to be pounding because what they thought that this wasn't going to happen now is happening, and now they're there and they're not prepared and they're damned as well. Verse number 9, أَبَصَّارُهَا خَاشِعَةٌ, speaking to that more, that their eyes would be humiliated. They're going to be, the eyes of the non-Muslims are going to be looking down in humiliation because of the situation that they're in at that time. Now verse 10 is referring to the type of talk that the non-Muslims have now. يَقُولُونَ أَإِنَّا لَمَرْدُودُونَ فِي الْحَافِرَةِ. They say, shall we indeed return to life in the graves? And in a mocking way. أَإِذَا كُنَّا عِظَامًا نَخِرَةً, which means when we shall have become rotten, decayed bones. So it's like as if the non-Muslims were saying, the idol worshippers during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, they were saying, we're going to come back. We're going to come back to life in the grave. What? After we became rotten, decayed bones? Like in a mocking tone. Then the final thing that they said is قَالُوا تِلْكَ إِذًا كَرَّةٌ خَاسِرَةٌ. They're saying, if that happens to us, then we're going to be losers. They say it in a mocking way. And verse 13, فَإِنَّمَا هِيَ زَجْرَةٌ وَاحِدَةٌ, is referring to that it's a single blast of the horn, which and the second blow of the horn, by that one blow, they all become resurrected. فَإِذَا هُمْ بِالسَّاهِرَةِ. They were saying, this is such a far-fetched thing, this is not going to happen, this is ridiculous. And then verse 13 and 14 are saying, it's just one blow of the horn, and in an instant, they're resurrected. And behold, they will be upon the surface of the earth. So that all of that was referring to that one thing. Now, the verse that comes after it is talking about the story of Prophet Moses alayhi salam. And so this story, and how is it related to the subject matter that has come before? And it's related because this is an example of what happens to those who are arrogant and reject Islam. An example of what happens to those who are arrogant and they take the Prophet as an enemy. Those who are arrogant and they want to harm the Muslims, which was the case of who? Was the case of the idol worshippers, of the non-Muslims. The idol worshippers of Quraysh during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And so this story is to show them, before you, there was people like the Pharaoh who was, let's say, worse than you, had more power than you, had more riches than you, and look what happened to him. So that's where we left off, verse 15. So we're going to recite together. call and response. I say it, then you say it. هل أتاك حديث موسى, which means, oh Muhammad, has the story of Moses come to you? So this is how the verse starts, basically, and this has happened also, or this this word formation, this type of sentence structure, it appears in different places in the Quran. And when we get to them, we'll highlight those examples. Verse 16. إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى. إذ ناداه ربه بالوادي المقدس طوى. Now, of course, the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam is a very extensive story, and inshallah, one day when we let's say have some time, we can go over the whole story. There's a lot of details about it are mentioned in the Quran. It's an amazing story. A lot of lessons to be learned from it. We're going to briefly go over it. Here in this surah, in Surah An-Naazi, they don't mention, like for example, the story from beginning to end, etc., like how it is with Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. They just mention the part in the story, and some of the part in the story where he is, and after he has been sent by Allah to call the Pharaoh to al-Islam. But let's give a little bit of the story, because it is a very beautiful story, mashallah, who can. So, just so you get some background, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he is the prophet and the messenger. And he is from the descendants of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, Prophet Jacob, also known as Israel. Now it's important to know that it is not permissible, and it's haram, it's forbidden, to refer to the Zionist entity, to refer to the state as Israel, because Israel is Prophet Jacob alayhi salam. You could call it the state, the Israelite state, or the Israelite entity, or the Israelite land, or not the land, the Israelite, whatever, just the Israelite country, the Israelite state, the Zionist entity. You could say that. You could say Israelite, you could say Israeli, because then it's, in that case, it's an attribution. But to name it Israel itself is not permissible, it's haram. So the Muslims need to be careful with that, because, and of course that in the media it's used, but we don't say that about the state. Israel is the name of a prophet, Prophet Jacob. His name is Israel, so we cannot belittle that word. We cannot curse that word, because it means Prophet Jacob, Prophet Yaqub. That's his name. His name is Israel. Jacob, his name is Israel. Israel is Jacob, Jacob is Israel. We could call it the Zionist state, the Zionist entity, the Israeli state, because it's an attribution.
Just like there's parts of the world named after prophets, doesn't mean
do you know what they mean when they name their country that? They mean the name of Prophet Jacob. Yeah. Well, the Sheikh said it was forbidden. And I'll find out why he said it. But also, the name itself means pious slave of God. So it's like naming a country pious slave of God. So the name itself, the word itself means pious slave of God. But I don't know if there's any place in the world that's named like after a person.
I don't know if it either, but it's just an example. Pretty sure there's some ways. But even if the case is, it's not always referring to the prophet. So if they were to curse Israel, we don't say that they're committing kufr. I've never heard a Zionist say that we're called Israel because of a prophet. I've never heard that.
Well, we'll look into the reason why the Sheikh said it was forbidden. And I guess we can also research why they chose that name. Because they didn't just pick it out of a hat, obviously. There's... Yeah, he is a children of Israel, and because he's a descendant of Jacob. Children of Israel? Yes. Yeah, the children of Jacob, the descendants of Jacob. Prophet Musa, like I was going to say, he is a descendant of Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, meaning that his lineage goes back to one of the 12 sons of Jacob. So when we say the children of Israel, we're referring to the offspring of Jacob. So Jacob had 12. Let me see if I can find their names here. So he had 12 sons: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Joseph, and Benjamin. Those are the 12 sons. That's their names. Those 12 sons, they are the origin of the 12 tribes. So each one of them got married. Each one of them had children. So the 12 tribes of Israel come from those 12 men. And one of them is Prophet Joseph, who's a prophet, and he for sure confirmed. The other one is Binyamin, who some said later became a prophet. The other 10, none of the other 10 became a prophet because they did those ugly acts, so they're disqualified from receiving prophethood. But from their descendants were the prophets. The majority of the prophets, they came from these 12 men. The children of Jacob, the children of Israel. Because Jacob is Israel, Israel is Jacob. So, from that lineage, I guess many years after, Prophet Moses came, alayhi salam. Came from that line. Came from that bloodline. So Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he is the third best prophet ever. And he was born during a time of intense oppression in Egypt. And the Pharaoh during that time, he claimed to be God. And he, I guess, forced or ordered, demanded for the people to worship him. And he enforced brutal policies, particularly against the children of Israel. And the Pharaoh and his followers, those are called the Copts, C-O-P-T-S. And so the children of Israel, the descendants of Jacob, and he hated them, and he discriminated against them, and he oppressed them. So he enslaved them, and he committed genocide against them. So basically the Pharaoh had a dream, and the interpretation of the dream that whoever he had among him, his sorcerers among him or around him, they interpreted his dream that there's going to be a child that is born among the Israelites, among the Israelis, amongst the children of Israel, that would grow up to overthrow him. So because he was terrified for his rulership, he ordered that all the newborn Israeli boys be massacred. So he ordered that they all be killed. So imagine that, like, just because that, let's say, a boy was born from the descendants of the children of Israel, born a boy, he was going to be killed because the Pharaoh had that dream. So after some time, the advisors that were around the Pharaoh, they told him, you had to slow down. If you're going to kill every newborn Israeli, then we're not going to have any slaves. If you're going to kill all the newborns, then there's not going to be anyone left that we can enslave, because they're all going to be killed. So they convinced him to instead to kill the male-born every other year. So 1 year yes, 1 year no. So 1 year he would kill every newborn baby and a male Israeli, and then 1 year he would let them be born. Then another year, etc. So Prophet Musa's mom, she was a remarkable woman of strong faith, and she got pregnant with Musa during the year when the Pharaoh's subordinates, they killed the babies. Allah Ta'ala enabled her to know that her child would have a great future and that the Pharaoh would not be able to harm him. So when he was born, she used to place him in a basket and set him afloat in the Nile River to save him from the Pharaoh's soldiers. So she would put him in a box, and she would tie the box with a rope to the bank of the river. Then she would release the box in the water. This way, she hid her baby from the villains. So every time that the Pharaoh's soldiers, they went to the houses of the Muslims to search, and these are Muslims. Now, at this point in time, the Israelites are Muslims. They're Muslims. So the Pharaoh's soldiers, when they would search the houses of the Muslims from the children of Israel to look for the newborns, she would put him in the basket, tie him up with the rope, and set him to float there, and they wouldn't obviously find him. But one day, she forgot to tie the basket, Allahu Akbar, and the baby was carried away by the flow of the river. So imagine that, and that's a big scare. And then the basket floated to where? It floated along the waves of the Nile and landed on the shore near Pharaoh's palace. Allahu Akbar. Right at the gate of the enemy, right where the enemy is. However, Pharaoh's wife's maids, they saw the basket and picked it up, thinking that it contained something valuable, and they brought it to the Pharaoh's wife. So now the Pharaoh's wife, Lady Asiya, who is the daughter of Muzahim, she was a pious woman. In fact, she is the fourth best woman in rank after Lady Maryam, Lady Fatima, and Lady Khadija. Allah Ta'ala mentioned her and Lady Maryam in the Quran as an example for the believers. According to the revealed laws of that time, a Muslim woman was allowed to be married to a kafir man. And eventually, Asiya, she was killed and tortured to death because she was a Muslim. And by the Pharaoh himself. Na'udhu billah. He tied her up in the desert and basically tortured her to death until she died. But she was patient and steadfast. and Allah Ta'ala showed her her house in paradise before she died. But anyway, she, Lady Asiya, radiallahu anha, she was known for her compassion and wisdom, and she recognized the innocence of the child, and she felt an immediate attachment to him. So she opened the basket. To her surprise, she saw a beautiful baby there with light between his eyes. Her heart got attached to him, and she decided to raise him herself, because she did not have any children with the Pharaoh. The cruel Pharaoh did not share this joy with her and ordered the boy to be killed. Subhanallah. So Lady Asiya, she brought baby Moses. She's obviously showing how she wants to keep him and how she is attached to him. The cruel Pharaoh, what does he want to do? He wants to kill the baby. Na'udhu billah. Now those Israelis, they've become like the Pharaoh, subhanallah. If you look at their actions, they kill the babies. There's and Allahu A'lam, the validity of that news, but they said that in, what is it, at Jabaliya camp or something, or one of the hospitals or whatever, they took all the babies, they threw them in a hole, and that they got the tanks to drive around in circles or whatever until the babies were crushed. Something like that. I don't know where exactly it happened, but they've become like the Pharaoh, subhanallah, killing the babies. They like to kill the babies. The cruel Pharaoh did not share his joy with her and ordered the boy to be killed. However, Asiya, Lady Asiya, radiallahu anha, was able to convince the Pharaoh to keep the child. The news that a boy was found in a basket that appeared in the palace spread quickly among the people. Moses' mother immediately realized that this was her son. She was grieving and did not know what to do next, greatly missing her child. So first, she went through the whole stress and difficulty of having to hide him, put him in the basket, and having a baby in secret. Put him in the basket, tie him up with the rope, but that day she forgot to tie the rope. And imagine that. If usually the basket, if it gets taken down the stream, what's going to happen? Usually what's going to tip over, the baby's going to fall out, many things can happen. But alhamdulillah, Allah Ta'ala protected baby Moses, and he floated safely to that area where Lady Asiya was bathing or was doing whatever in the water with her female servants, and they found the baby and she took care of it. She brought it to the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh wanted to kill the baby, but Lady Asiya convinced him to keep the baby. The news of the baby spread around, and this whole time Prophet Moses, his mom, is worried. She doesn't know what happened, but now she knows that he's alive and he is in the palace. So she asked her daughter Maryam, the daughter of Prophet Moses' mom, Prophet Moses' sister, to go to the palace and find out how things were going there. Without wasting time, Maryam went there and saw baby Moses crying from hunger because he did not drink the milk of any woman who was brought to him. Quietly approaching Lady Asiya, Moses' sister, said that she knew a reliable and honest woman who could be a wet nurse for the child and care for him for a certain fee. This is how Prophet Musa's mom, alayhi salam, ended up in the palace. Seeing her child, Moses' mother was happy. The baby enjoyed the milk to his fill and fell asleep. Asiya was incredibly happy and invited this woman to live in their palace and promised a generous reward for her help in this. Moses' mother explained that she could not afford this because there were other children waiting for her at home whom she could not leave. She asked Asiya for permission to take the child to her home. Asiya had no choice but to agree, but she asked her to bring Moses to her from time to time so that she could see him grow. She also undertook to provide him with everything he needed. So by the will of Allah, Moses returned to his mother safe and sound. Allah protected him from reprisals in the palace of the man who most wanted his death in the palace of the cruel Pharaoh. So this is how Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he was saved from the tyranny of the Pharaoh. And so he grew up in the palace, and things happened. And like we said, there's a lot of details to the story. But Prophet Musa alayhi salam left Egypt, and then he stayed in a place called Midian, and then he was returning to Egypt. So by that time when he was returning to Egypt, he already had 2 sons, and his wife was pregnant with her 3rd child. And so he was heading back to Egypt, and he noticed on his journey that there was a distant glow on the mountain of Tur. And he saw a large green tree. And when he reached that tree, he saw that there was no one near that tree. And as he was approaching that tree, Allah Ta'ala enabled Prophet Musa alayhi salam to hear the eternal and everlasting attribute of Allah, which is not a sound letter or language, informing Prophet Musa alayhi salam that he is a prophet of Allah, that he is receiving the revelation. So right there at that spot, Prophet Musa alayhi salam received revelation from Allah. Allah gave Moses the ability to hear his eternal kalam, which is not a speech made of letters or sound. The kalam of Allah is not in any language, neither Arabic nor Hebrew. All languages are created. The kalam of Allah is an attribute of Allah that is not created. Rather, the kalam of Allah has no beginning and no end. And Musa alayhi salam, he understood from that kalam, and that he is a prophet receiving revelation. This is what verse 16 of Surah An-Naazi is referring to. This moment right here, the Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he was in that place, and he was enabled to hear the eternal and everlasting attribute of Allah. إِذْ نَادَاهُ رَبُّهُ بِالْوَادِ الْمُقَدَّسِ طُوًى. So that's where he received revelation. And so among what he understood from that revelation is that and he has to take off his shoes because he's in the blessed land of Tuwa. And Allah Ta'ala informed Prophet Moses alayhi salam that he has been chosen, and that and he's going to have these special miracles. He was ordered to throw his staff to the ground. By the will of Allah, it turned into a huge, fast-moving snake. And he was ordered to grab it, and he picked it up. And also, Allah Ta'ala ordered Prophet Moses to put his hand inside of his robe, in his bosom, so like on his chest, or like right here, and then to take it out, and it was glowing white. It glowed an amazing white light. And Allah Ta'ala commanded Prophet Musa alayhi salam to go to the Pharaoh. That's what verse 17 is referring to. We're going to recite it, call and response. اذهب إلى فرعون إنه طغى. So this means, O Musa, go to the Pharaoh, for he has indeed transgressed. Now remember the history. From the time that he was a little baby, the Pharaoh wanted to kill Prophet Musa. And he grew up in the palace. And of course the Pharaoh knew who he was. And he knew that, he knew who he was, but the Pharaoh being arrogant, claiming to be God, and also knowing this, let's say, Prophet Musa, since he was a baby, and he was ordered, Prophet Musa alayhi salam was ordered to face him, to confront him. Allah Ta'ala informed Musa that Pharaoh transgressed by committing blasphemy. Pharaoh was the title of Al-Walid, the son of Mus'ab, the king of Egypt. In the Arabic language, as was mentioned by Al-Jawhari, every arrogant, sly snob is called Pharaoh. The term Pharaohism in Arabic refers to shrewdness and arrogance. يعني إذا كان واحدا متكبرا يقال له في اللغة العربية فرعون. هكذا يطلق عليه هذا الاسم. وفرعون يعني هو اسم منصب لأولئك الملوك. واسم هذا الفرعون بالخصوص الوليد ابن مصعب لعنات الله عليه. So Prophet Musa alayhi salam, he was ordered to face the Pharaoh. And he is just one man, but he's a prophet of God, so he's fully confident. He's not afraid of the Pharaoh. He is not hesitant. He is fully sure. And he's facing the Pharaoh, a man who claims to be God, and he has followers. He's a Pharaoh. He's not like, some supposed president or vice president or anything like that, begging people for votes so that they can get elected into office, and doing all sorts of shenanigans so that people can vote for them to win their vote. They're telling people, please vote for me. And they think they're powerful, and they call it a big deal. This is not like that. This is a Pharaoh. He is claiming worship him or else be killed. There's no elections here. There's no begging for your vote. There's no please vote for me. So Prophet Musa alayhi salam facing him. Verse 18, فَقُلْ هَلْ لَكَ إِلَىٰ أَن تَزَكَّى فَقُلْ هَلْ لَكَ إِلَىٰ أَن تَزَكَّى. Which means, and say, how about going to purity? So really straightforward. Prophet Musa alayhi salam going to the Pharaoh, and how about doing what's right? How about going to purity? How about going to what is correct? Allah ordered Musa to say to Pharaoh, won't you accept my call to Islam and purify yourself from sin? That is, I call on you to become Muslim, to do good deeds, to decorate yourself with merits, and to purify yourself from sins. Allahu Akbar. Imagine if Pharaoh had accepted the call of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, the world, or things would be different in the world. But but the Pharaoh was arrogant. He rejected. Verse 19, وَأَهْدِيَكَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَتَخْشَىٰ. Which means, and that I guide you to your Lord so that you may have fear. So that, and basically what's Prophet Musa alayhi salam, what's he saying to him? He's saying, do this, what is good for you. Do this thing that is going to benefit you, is going to guide you, so you can fear Allah. And Allah Ta'ala ordered Musa to tell Pharaoh, I guide you to know Allah through the proof, so that you may fear Him and thereby perform the obligations and refrain from the prohibitions. This ayah clearly denotes that believing in Allah has precedence over other acts of obedience, because Allah mentioned the guidance first. Mentioning the fear of Allah came next, making it a consequence of being guided. And number one is become Muslim. So literally, Prophet Moses alayhi salam calling the Pharaoh to just become Muslim. Do what's right, do what's good. Verse 20, فَأَرَاهُ الْآيَةَ الْكُبْرَى. which means then Moses showed Pharaoh the great sign. Because like we mentioned before, the prophets, what's their verification that they're telling the truth? For example, Prophet Moses alayhi salam came to the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh knows Moses from the past. He knew him as a little baby. He wanted to kill him at one point in time. And he wants to kill him still, but he wanted to kill him even when he was a baby. So now this person has grown up, come to him and told him, become Muslim, leave out your blasphemy, become guided, meaning I'm sent by God to tell you this. So what is Prophet Moses alayhi salam going to do? Show him the proof. And this is the proof. Then Moses showed Pharaoh the great sign. Moses went to Pharaoh and conveyed what his Lord ordered him to convey. But Pharaoh demanded proof. So Moses performed the great miracle. Imam al-Bukhari narrated in his narrations that Mujahid said, the great sign was the miracles of Moses' staff becoming a serpent and his hand illuminating. Verse 21, فَكَذَّبَ وَعَصَى, which means, but he belied and sinned. Instead of accepting this miracle, what the miracle proves. Because he saw it with his own eyes. He saw the staff of Moses turn into a real live snake and eat everything in its surroundings. He saw Moses put his hand inside of his cloak, inside of his robe, and take out his hand, and there's a glowing white light. So he knows that this is extraordinary. He knows this is not normal. But still he contradicted and chose not to believe. Pharaoh belied Musa and disobeyed Allah after witnessing the miracle which proved Moses' truthfulness. Verse 22, ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ يَسْعَى, which means Pharaoh turned his back on the correct belief, endeavored to commit much corruption, and travailed in scheming against Musa. And he insisted on scheming against Musa. فَحَشَرَ فَنَادَى, which means Pharaoh gathered his sorcerers and soldiers to obstruct the truth and delivered a loud speech to them. He got everyone together and he gave a speech. فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى, which means, and he said, I am your Lord, the Most High. وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ. Pharaoh told them, I am your Lord, the glorified. He meant that the people had no God above or besides or greater than him. We seek refuge with Allah from this abhorrent statement. Verse 25. فَأَخَذَهُ اللَّهُ نَكَالَ الْآخِرَةِ وَالْأُولَى, which means, and so with an exemplifying punishment, Allah Ta'ala took him for the first and the last statements of blasphemy. For the things that the Pharaoh said, Allah Ta'ala punished him and made an example out of him for his first statement when he said, مَا عَلِمْتُ لَكُم مِّن إِلَهٍ غَيْرِي, when he told the people, I don't know any other God for you except me. Na'udhu billah. And then later, he said another statement. He said, I am your Lord, the glorified. I am your most high Lord. So Allah Ta'ala punished him in this life by drowning him, and he shall be severely tortured in the hereafter in hellfire, and he will be in the lowest levels of the hellfire. Verse 26, إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَعِبْرَةً لِمَنْ يَخْشَى, which means, verily, in that is a lesson for whosoever fears. That which happened to Pharaoh stands as a lesson for the one who fears Allah. Idol worshippers of Quraysh, take heed. Idol worshippers of Quraysh, you keep worshipping the idols. Look what happened to the Pharaoh, who he claimed himself that he was God. So what do you think is going to happen to you? Similar thing, that they'll get destroyed. And then verse 27, now going back to the rhetoric of Allah Ta'ala He is the one who created these things that are amazing and that are essential for your life. And so He has the power to resurrect you after death. Verse 27. أأنتم أشد خلقا أم السماء بناها. Which means, O people, are you grander as a creation, or is the sky? Allah created it. Allah made it. In this ayah, Allah Ta'ala addressed the people of Mecca who disbelieved in the resurrection, scolding and refuting them, and informing them by posing a rhetorical question. It means that according to your mental consideration, which is more difficult, recreating you after death, considering that you are weak, or creating the sky, considering its obvious, perfect, and lasting expanse. In truth, creating both matters has the same standing in relation to the power of Allah, because His power is perfect and is not lacking. Yani, creating humans and creating the heavens, to Allah is the same. To the power of Allah, it's the same. Creating an ant and creating the largest creation, the throne, it's the same. But this rhetoric here, what is it referring to? And it's referring to, oh, you idol worshippers. In your mind, in your mental consideration, which is harder? Resurrecting you, and you're just like a human, just a little tiny human, or creating the sky, which is larger and bigger, and larger and bigger. It doesn't mean that there's levels of difficulty to Allah. No. Creating the heavens and creating the humans, creating the whole entire universe, to Allah is the same. Now, verse 28, رَفَعَ سَمْكَهَا فَسَوَّاهَا, which means He raised its surface and evened it. Yani talking about the sky. Allah Ta'ala describes the sky as a sound structure that He created above us. Allah Ta'ala made the skies very high. A walking distance of 500 years separates the surface of the earth from the first sky. And likewise, each successive sky to the next, up to the seventh sky. Each sky has a thickness to it, which is the distance between its bottom surface and upper surface, as stipulated by the interpreter of the Quran, Abu Hayyan, in his interpretation, An-Nahrul Mad. Allah Ta'ala created the sky smooth and level, without any defects, clear of any elevations or depressions. It is well made and masterly built. Verse 29, وَأَغْطَشَ لَيْلَهَا وَأَخْرَجَ ضُحَاهَا, which means Allah Ta'ala darkened its night and He brought out its morning light. Allah Ta'ala made the sky's night dark and brought out its morning light. Al-Qurtubi said that Allah Ta'ala attributed the duha time, which is the light of the sun prior to noon, to the sky, because the sky contains the reasons for darkness and daylight, which is sunset and sunrise. In this ayah, Allah Ta'ala attributed both the night and the duha, pre-noon sunshine, to the sky. The night follows the sunset, and the duha is the time after sunrise. Both of these matters, the daytime and the nighttime, have their own pathways, as well as the sun, which travels within the domain of the sky. Allahu Akbar. Much to be said about that. Yani, in comparison to what the secularists and the non-Muslims say. But we were not going to get into details with that right now. But just so you know, what the Quran says, and what Islam says, and what the scholars of Islam, what they confirm and what they say based on evidence, etc., that we'll take that over what some so-called scientists and physicists and so-called astronauts say. Because the overall vibes is that they are liars and that they stage and fake many things, and they're not credible, they're not trustworthy. For sure they're not trustworthy. That's known. But still, take this as a rule. Anything that contradicts the Quran, automatically falsehood. Automatic. That's how you know it's false. It contradicts the Quran. So no matter what they say, what articles they write, what news propaganda they put, what documentary, what supposed footage they show you, if it contradicts the Quran, it's falsehood, period. Because there can be nothing that contradicts the Quran. And anything that it goes against the Quran is invalid. We throw it against the wall. We throw it in any valley, in any ditch, in any hole. That is meaningless to us. And if the non-Muslims and the secularists, they want to be attached to whatever contradicts the Quran, we tell them, you have no evidence, you have no proof. By what standard do you judge? Says who? Some atheist that some atheist that lacks hygiene, that's who we're going to follow instead of the Quran? No, can't be. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. We will continue, and we left off at ayah number 30. Inshallah, we'll continue next week if any were alive and if we're on the schedule. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah, come. Go ahead. Check the chat. Was he what? That's not Lady Maryam that we know, but he had a sister named Maryam. Yes. No. It's not the same Lady Maryam. She came centuries later. Yeah. Hold on. How old was he? Actually, that's a good question. I don't have any age. I will ask, inshallah. Nah, what's the question over there?
Was Lady Asiya from the children of Israel?
I don't know. The apparent is not, is that she wasn't. The apparent is that she wasn't. But I will ask. No, what's another? Now it's important here, I want to mention something about Prophet Musa alayhi salam. As you know, the Muslim who learns the obligatory knowledge, he learns the basic rules that are applied towards how what we believe about the prophets. So among those rules is that the prophets, they are clear from any physical defect that would take away from their status as prophets, and that is, let's say, contradictory to the office of prophethood. That's not befitting of the office of prophethood. So no prophet has any physical defect that is not in line with being a prophet. So some people, they misunderstand certain verses of the Quran, or they might read in the books of tafsir without knowledge and without taking that book, and they might think, and which is not true, they might think that Prophet Musa alayhi salam stuttered. And that would be kufr to believe that about Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He did not stutter. And Prophet Musa alayhi salam did not have a speech impediment. So anyone that heard him speak, and they would understand him clearly. What did happen with Prophet Musa alayhi salam is that when he was like a baby, like an infant, he put a burning coal in his mouth and it burned his tongue. It singed his tongue. So there was like you know what happens like when you get burned? There's like a scar or whatever. Like the trace of that coal burning his tongue, and it was still on his tongue, like a spot. Let's say it was a spot or whatever, like something that happens to your tongue when it gets burned by something. That trace was still there. But he did not have a speech impediment. And he did not stutter. And he spoke clearly. Now what is mentioned in the Quran, وَحْلُلْ عُقُدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي, is that Prophet Musa himself, and he would notice that there was some light light speed when he spoke. So you know how some people, for example, they talk like they talk really fast, they can talk really fast like that. And some people, they would, take their time when they say the words. So Prophet Musa alayhi salam had a light speed when he spoke. Not a speech impediment, not, for example, not understood when he spoke, not a stutter, not a lisp, right? He did not have a lisp. He did not stutter. He didn't have a speech impediment. He was clearly understood. Just that he had a light speed when he spoke. Because of that, when the burning coal touched his tongue. So, Prophet Musa alayhi salam asked Allah to remove that. So that's all I want to mention about Prophet Musa. No, he didn't fear. He just, the prophets, they ask for perfection for themselves, and it be like perfection and the levels and levels. So even though like there's nothing wrong with him, there's no like defect in him, he wanted that trace to be gone. The trace from being singed on his tongue. He wanted that trace to be gone. It's not mentioned in this surah, in An-Naazi, but for sure he was, so we'll say the order of approaching the Pharaoh and to call him to al-Islam with wisdom, etc. That's not mentioned in this surah. It's mentioned in other parts of the Quran. But still, in this surah, what we have is the actual terms that, or the meanings of the terms. فَقُلْ هَلْ لَكَ إِلَىٰ أَن تَزَكَّى, which is like, it's a way of asking someone to accept something that is making it easy for them to accept, not in a way that would make it easy for them to reject. So that style of asking, فَهَلْ لَكَ, it means like, wouldn't you, or won't you, or would you do this? Not in a way that would make them reject, and it would make it easier for them to reject. So that's mentioned here in this surah. The words, like the way that those words were presented, but the order of it being with wisdom and in an inviting way are in other surahs. That's that chapter. So basically, Prophet Musa alayhi salam, Allah Ta'ala ordered Prophet Musa alayhi salam to go to the Pharaoh, call him to al-Islam, and to use, let's say, an inviting method, a way of calling him to al-Islam that makes it easy for him to accept, not easy for him to reject. No. I need to look at what it actually says. But yeah, it's not, and not in a harsh way. Yeah, you could say gently, not in a harsh way. No. Any others? طيب. Nobody here. طيب. نهلل لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رب اغفر لي وللمؤمنين والمؤمنات وبارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم.